welcome to Butterflies of Wisdom, everyone. And I'm sorry, but you're not going to get to play on this one if you don't know necessarily about LinkedIn, because we're talking about from beginning to the end of the LinkedIn. So if you don't want to know about LinkedIn because of my guest, skip this episode, please. Just skip this episode. Or maybe you do want to know about LinkedIn because LinkedIn is the business version of Facebook. So that being said, I'm going to let Miss Chrissie take it away.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited that you heard me speaking on Natalie Egdahl's podcast, which is how we got connected. So a little bit background about me. My name is Chrissie Wywrot, and I live in Michigan with my husband and my 3 kids and my 2 cats. And I have a background in sports. I worked for the Detroit Lions, which is an NFL team, for almost 10 years on the website there. And then I left that job and pursued a career as an entrepreneur and ultimately stumbled into working with LinkedIn because I've always had a gift for ghostwriting and selling. So I started working with individuals to optimize their LinkedIn profiles to make them more attractive to whomever they are looking to sell to. So sometimes that's networking, sometimes it's getting a job, other times it's acquiring clients. I like to work most with people who are owners of B2B businesses, so who are looking for leads from other businesses.
Okay. Now, you guys, Chrissie mentioned another wonderful podcast. That's how I found it. It's called the Biz Chicks Podcast, and Chicks is spelled with the X. And so if you just Google Natalie Egdahl out of Orange County, California, Biz Chicks will pop up. Just wanted to throw that in there. That's how I found Chrissie, by the way. And so, Chrissie.
Yeah.
Okay, let's use me as an example. I am a podcast host. I am on LinkedIn, always looking for leads to either sell my books or have people like you be on my podcast. So, how do we start making what they call all-star profiles? Do we start posting articles on LinkedIn or posting links to the podcast? Because my podcast host Lipson automatically posts to my LinkedIn via the destinations setting. So how do we start attracting people to LinkedIn?
Well, the first thing that you want to work on is making sure that the profile you have says what you want it to say to attract people to do what you want them to do. So the number one thing is your headline, which is basically a tagline that accompanies your name whenever you post on the platform. And that's going to draw people in. It's almost like your own personal billboard. So for you, you might want to post that you host a podcast and you want to include specific attributes of that podcast that are going to attract the people you want to attract. And then from there,
So I would have to say I'm a podcast host, which we'll do today actually. When this interview comes out, you guys, my LinkedIn profile will be all spruced up by the time you hear this, or so I think. And so I need to put, I'm a podcast host. I need to put attributes of that podcast.
Yes, you want to make sure that what makes your podcast unique and what makes it attractive to your target audience is included in your LinkedIn headline. And then you also, it's good to have an action statement. So, you can say something like broadcasting the Butterflies of Wisdom podcast for, X people, for business women, or, women with cerebral palsy, or whatever it is that you specifically are focused on, that are going to attract people to you, that are going to say, oh, she has something in common with me, or this is something that I want to know more about. And so then they're going to click on your profile. And then having that in place, you want to make sure that all of the sections of your profile, especially the ones that are current, which you have 4 different current sections. So the fact that you're an author and a teacher and you own businesses, you'll want to describe those businesses and put within those sections what you want people to know. So you'll want to put, pieces about your book in there. You're going to want to put information about your podcast in there, and you want to have a call to action so people know how to engage with you once they read your profile.
So, putting in links, okay, or is that just makes matters worse? Do people actually click on links from LinkedIn?
So the one thing about LinkedIn is within the sections, the links are not active. So you can actually put in there an email address or a link, and people will have to copy and paste it into their email or their browser. There's also an option. Yeah, there's also an option. People do it. Yeah, people do it. And then there's an option to link to articles and to upload media. So you could upload episodes of your podcast. You could link to episodes of your podcast. You could link to excerpts from your book, different things like that. And those will show up as thumbnails underneath each of your positions. So you actually attach them to specific positions. So if you wanted to put a particular piece of media to your Women of Wisdom section, you could go ahead and do that, and it would show up underneath that section.
Okay, because I put a link to my book. No wonder why it's not working. The link wasn't active. No wonder why. That's good.
Yeah.
So we need still update her profile with Chrissie's suggestions. Okay. So Lynn gets caught with her hand in a cookie jar about LinkedIn on her own podcast, which
I'll give you another tip. So since you don't really have anything under your experience sections right now, you can capitalize on updating your profile by deleting the section and starting over. So if you delete it and then you put on the form that you fill out to add the information, if you make sure that you have selected that the update will be sent out to all of your connections, they will see your new section. It will come up in their news feed. So it'll kind of be a fun little way to push out the information to your network without really having to do much work.
Okay, cool. Cool beans. So, okay, so now that I know links don't work, what about posting articles on LinkedIn? I know when we talked about on the initial call, you said something to me that shocked me. I thought Google picked it up. Since LinkedIn has changed the algorithm, is Google picking it up or no? Because I'm watching all these people write LinkedIn articles, and they call them LinkedIn articles, and I'm not really seeing the attraction in my own news feed. Now, granted, I haven't wrote a LinkedIn article yet, so that's what I wanted to talk to you about.
Yeah, so my strategy for that is typically to post content on both my website and LinkedIn, so I'll post identical content. The benefit to doing the LinkedIn content is that it is connected to your profile, so if it's content related to what you're trying to attract from individuals on LinkedIn, you have that headline attached to it in your profile, so people are more likely to click on your LinkedIn profile. But typically, I publish identical content to both my website and LinkedIn. Also, if you're somebody who has different objectives with your business, so for example, maybe you target business owners, but you also target another subset of people that wouldn't necessarily be hanging out on LinkedIn, or that's not how you would attract them, you can make your content just a little bit different to attract to each audience. So you essentially write the majority of the same thing, but you can change your voice a little bit to attract to each individual group, and then you can publish them in separate places. So the voice that will really attract other business owners or individuals that will be on LinkedIn, you can actually have it geared really toward them, and then that will be posted natively on the platform.
So don't always focus on LinkedIn. Focus on your website and LinkedIn.
Absolutely. Definitely.
Oh,
and once you do get it on LinkedIn, make sure you publish it into your news feed. So you don't want to just publish it and walk away. You want to make sure that you post it within the news feed. And LinkedIn has an interesting or a easy to use feature now where when you're inside your own article, if you highlight a paragraph or a sentence, there'll be this little arrow that appears on the right-hand side, and you can click on that arrow and it will take the highlighted text and turn that into a post linking to your article.
How cool is that? So if I put excerpt of my book on LinkedIn, I should put it on my website as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll do that, you guys, because my LinkedIn profile needs to be under the control of Chrissie here because she's the expert. I'm not. So that's why I brought her on. So, Chrissie, what has been your favorite entrepreneurial moment in all this?
Oh, my favorite entrepreneurial moment. So after I left the Lions, I started partnering with a former player, and we worked together for about a year. And it ended up, the relationship dissolved, and I was trying to become a marketer for athletes, and it wasn't working out. And so I ended up having to look for a full-time job, or at least I thought I did. And so I was looking for a full-time job. I got a ton of leads, fitting enough for me. But when I never converted on getting the jobs, and I really believe it's because I didn't want a full-time job at all. And this process happened for the entire summer. This was the summer of 2015. And I get to the end of the summer, and I'm having a conversation with my husband, and all of a sudden he says, "No, I think you'd be great working for yourself." And here I was doing all of this searching for a full-time job because I believed that I quote unquote had to for my family. And here he was telling me he thought it was a great fit that I work for myself. And so from that point on, I shifted my focus, and it was incredible how as soon as I did that and really put everything into starting my own business, it took off because it was really what I wanted to do. And so just that moment of him expressing complete faith in me as an entrepreneur and then, pivoting and it all working was just a wonderful thing.
Well, supportive family. We couldn't do it without supportive families here. None of us as podcasters, none of us as solo entrepreneurs could not do any of this without family members supporting us. So good. Supportive husband, supportive family. And yeah, finding jobs on LinkedIn is not cool because even though they have this easily apply thing, which you can upload your resume and upload your phone number, and then half the time they send you to the company's website anyway. So finding jobs on LinkedIn is not good.
Well, see, the thing that I would suggest and what I've always loved doing, and it's why generating leads is one of my favorite things to do, is I approach it always from the back door. So what I love about LinkedIn is that I can do some sleuthing and figure out, okay, so this is the job that they're looking to hire for. Who is the HR person? Who is the person that would be heading up that department? And I can seek those people out on the platform and send out individual messages and do different things like that. So I like to go against the grain and create personal interactions and engagements that tend to lead to phone calls and follow-ups and things like that.
Okay, which leads me to my next question. Okay, how do I don't know how to put this question. I'll put it this way. I'll be blunt and be honest, how do I approach potential podcast interviewees without being filled in, without being slimy?
I've gotten that question about a lot of other things too. One friend said, how do I do this without being smarmy? I enjoyed the word smarmy.
Sure.
So, number one is making sure that there's a mutual benefit. So reaching out and, acknowledging the individual that you've seen what they're about and what they're doing. So basically number one is acknowledging that you've read this person's profile or that you know about this person. And then number two is making it a mutual benefit. I'd love to have you on the podcast so that you could talk about your business and talk about, this particular expertise you have. For my audience, I think it would be a great help. Keep it short and sweet, but keep it genuine. And then the follow-up, once they do express interest or when they want to learn more, that's when you really dig deeper.
And so, within the private messages, I say, can I interview you? And 9 times out of 10, they say yes. And so, are links active within private messages?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So if I put my link to learn more about the podcast, it will be active. Okay.
Absolutely.
Curious about that. And so, what is your favorite podcast? It doesn't have to be a LinkedIn-related podcast. It just has to be a podcast that you go back to time and time again.
Well, I do love Natalie's podcast, the Biz Chicks podcast. That's one of my favorites. And then there is the Small Business Boss podcast. They changed the name of it, but I don't know if you're familiar with that one, but it's from Scoop Industries with Maggie Patterson is one of the hosts, and it's just really fun. It's these two entrepreneurial women who go back and forth about service-based businesses. So I really enjoy listening to them.
And I'm going to ask you the same thing about a book. It doesn't have to be a business book. It just has to be a book that you go back to time and time again.
I love reading and I love self-help, so I'm constantly digging into books. But one of the most influential ones, I think it's the 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss. But that was one of the things that really helped me recognize that I don't have to work like 7 days a week, because I came out of a mentality of being in a field where you're kind of always at work. So the idea of automation and delegation and enjoying life for what it is and not, just working all the time was a great thing for me to experience.
Yeah. And where can people find you, and where can people get in touch with you on LinkedIn, obviously? And do you offer coaching services? Where can people find you?
So you can find me on LinkedIn, first of all, which is linkedin.com/in/Chrissie Wywrot, which is ChrissieWywrot. There's an extra W in there. And then my website is the same. It's my full name URL, ChrissieWywrot.com. And while I don't do coaching yet, I do strategy sessions, which are an hour long, where I get to talk to individuals about their businesses or anything that they're looking to do strategy-wise, and offer suggestions about how to move forward with personal branding, marketing, social media, all of that. So I absolutely love helping people with their brands and their LinkedIn profiles.
And you guys, I will even put my LinkedIn profile in these show notes so you guys can connect with me or have people connect with me to be a potential podcast guest, because obviously Chrissie and I love LinkedIn. Obviously Chrissie and I need to do more deep dive on LinkedIn on this show. We need to do a second episode too, because this was just the beginning of what LinkedIn can do and how we should all use it. So Chrissie, if you're up for it, I would love to do a second episode with you to deep dive more into LinkedIn.
Sure, I would love to.
Well, yeah, you would love to. And I hope you guys enjoyed another fabulous episode. But before I let Chrissie go, I am going to let her turn the mic on me and ask me a couple questions about anything that she wants to ask me about, including LinkedIn.
Okay. So I will ask you, what has been your biggest achievement in business?
Starting this podcast and sticking with it and getting 55,000 downloads of it.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
So, yeah. Yeah, and I won't say publishing 8 to 9 books under my name. I won't say that because,
is that it?
That's it. I would think the podcast or my books. I would think the podcast or my books. Even though I'm still in teaching mode, I'm slowly but surely walking away from teaching mode and starting to work for myself, because I am coming to find out that teaching and me don't mix. And so, just because I can't control kids, I literally can't control the kids, they control me, and due to my physical disability, I need to find something else to do. So I might as well use my gifts of writing and my gifts of public speaking to make money.
There you go. What is your favorite thing about being a podcast host?
My favorite thing of being a podcast host is educating myself and about LinkedIn and about my own company and things I can do better within my own company.
Definitely. That's one of the best things about interviewing people is you learn all sorts of things about different industries. With doing LinkedIn profiles, that actually happens for me as well. So I work with people in a number of different industries, and I end up getting crash courses in what they do, and it's fascinating.
Yeah, I bet you do. I bet you do. So, Chrissie, what would be tie-up segment for your last piece of advice for this interview?
My last piece of advice would be to, anytime you're on any social media platform, but especially LinkedIn, one of the biggest factors for getting the most out of it is to be a real person on the platform, which I know isn't always the easiest thing. A lot of, there's a lot of personal image and different things that people can paint pictures of themselves, or things that aren't necessarily as genuine, or people who just send out a bunch of sales messages. But the very best thing that you can do is be human and be yourself and act like you're actually walking up to someone on the street to have a conversation whenever you strike up a conversation online.
Well, that's lovely advice. And this podcast has been sponsored by Grace by Grit. Grace by Grit is a clothing line out of California, and they're giving you 20% off anything on the website when you type in the code EXO Butterflies, and I will be sharing something special with them in the next couple of weeks. So by the time you hear this on Wednesday, it should be up and running. And so, you guys, you have to go at least try LinkedIn. If I can do it, I know you can do it, because LinkedIn is the business version of Facebook, as I said. So even if you don't want to get heavily involved as Chrissie and I are, just have a presence on LinkedIn, and then that will make me happy, that will make Chrissie happy, and that will make Google happy, because when you Google your name, your LinkedIn profile will probably pop up. So I hope you guys enjoyed another episode with Chrissie and myself, and then we'll have all of Chrissie's information in the show notes. I'll even put my LinkedIn profile in the show notes myself, and so then you guys can all get educated on LinkedIn. Thanks, you guys.